Hello with you, psychologist Yulia Latunenko. Today I will tell you what can help you in the process of divorce. Because divorce is considered trauma number 2 in the trauma ranking. After the loss of a loved one due to death, that is, divorce is as destructive in its impact as the loss of a loved one. Before we begin, I remind you that I am eagerly awaiting your support, your likes, your subscriptions, and also the sharing of my videos on social networks. This greatly helps in promoting my YouTube channel. We all know that there are couples who divorce and remain friends. We can say that this is a conditionally ideal divorce. People thank each other, acknowledging that problems arose in the relationship that were impossible. To overcome it, they take 50-50 responsibility for their contribution that led to the divorce. Well, and they remain mature. In doing so, they took responsibility and let each other go without anger, hatred, disputes, or courts, emotional fights, over property, which they can agree on everything and separate in such a way that it does not significantly affect their future lives and also minimizes the trauma to children during the divorce. But there are not many such couples, and very often we have examples of relationships and divorces that are so destructive that it turns out to be very impossible to have the kind of divorce I described above. And this usually happens when one of the partners is either a psychopath or a narcissist. Such relationships seem unable to be resolved peacefully. Therefore, such relationships usually continue for a very long time and are based on hatred and an extraordinary unwillingness of the partners to take responsibility for their own contributions. Relationships are usually built by two people, maintained by two for some time, but we often see, especially on YouTube and the internet, a widespread stance of victim humanization. Therefore, it is very convenient for everyone to be victims in relationships and blame their partner. But today I will even tell you about my own experience when I was 16 years old. In a relationship with a man with a narcissistic personality, with narcissistic disorder, and I managed to remain on friendly terms with him after the divorce. When I realized that such a relationship was going down such a destructive path that I no longer had the strength, I was exhausted from fighting with this person. I was ready to leave everything we had accumulated together over 16 years and just walk away, just to not see this person, despite the fact that we had a child together, and this also affected the child. Very destructive. But I managed to be brave and go for a final conversation with my partner. I invited him to a restaurant. I arranged this meeting for a final conversation. To close this chapter for myself, where did I start? I started by thanking him for being in my life and for what I believe was valuable in our relationship. Because after all, for some reason, both partners find that value, thanks to which they stay with each other for a long time in life. So I thanked for what was valuable to me, including the wonderful child I had with this person. But I told my partner at this final meeting that I take 50% of the responsibility for my part in what we both ultimately came to. I pointed out that I had a childhood trauma, that he was very similar in his behavior. To my mother, that he did to me everything that my mother once did. And I told him that I had a certain projection of my mother, when subconsciously choosing a partner for life, I was essentially looking for that maternal figure with which I was dissatisfied all my life. And probably subconsciously, I tried, like all little immature girls, to find in a partner that good, wonderful mother who would solve all my problems and eventually love me. But my subconscious led me to partners who could fully, in every aspect, show me my problem. No one wants to be a mother to an adult, but the subconscious and trauma lead us to those very people so that we relive it over and over again. The same traumatic childhood experience, and eventually realize it and develop into an adult child. I told him all this and said that probably our entire life together was in projection. I treated him like my mother. And of course, there is also such a thing as projective identification, where we do something to make the partner resemble that same parent who traumatized us in childhood. That is, we seemingly prepare this platform in the field so that our trauma eventually develops, and so that we can face our subconscious problems again and again. That is, I took responsibility for my trauma because no one, neither he nor any other person, and not even my mother anymore, who has already done what she did, but now I am an adult and only I can take responsibility for whether I work on my trauma and which partners I choose. Yes, of course, there was a mistake in choice, but it was my mistake in choice. And as an adult, at that time, I was already deeply involved in psychology. I had already started working a bit, practicing. I managed to be brave and tell the narcissistic partner, thank you for what was, for this and that with you, for what you gave me. And here, are 50% of my responsibility. Now listen carefully. I don't know if you can take responsibility for your actions towards me. And I told him about what really hurt me in the relationship, what I was dissatisfied with in this relationship. And I said that, these are things I no longer want to tolerate and cannot. I am grateful to you, but my resentment towards you, my anger, prevents us from being together. And at this point in our relationship, I decide to end it and ask you to let me go. With the same gratitude, I release you. Our resentments, our Nika's hatred, it has already fractured our relationship so much that to continue it, I see no sense in it. So let's end it and remain friends. And, I was surprised that although I considered my partner a narcissist, and he is one, I was surprised that he responded to my impulse like that. And he told me, yes, I understand everything you're saying, actually. We both did this. I have my responsibility, and you have yours. Of course, he didn't specify his responsibility as clearly as I did. Husband may not have even been sincere, but I no longer cared, because for me, the most important thing was to tell him about my 50% and to give him his 50% of the responsibility that I saw in our relationship. Whether he takes it or not, that's no longer my problem. It's his problem. So my step, he apologized about the house, freed me from continuing an emotional war with this person, and allowed us to remain friends. Since then, I now know how to end relationships, how to part ways in an environmentally friendly way. And I don't hide the fact that I've had several marriages with all my partners. I remain friends with my exes, can even meet up, be friends, and help each other. We simply transition to a different quality. That's why I wanted to share this experience with you. And say that even if it's very scary, even if you're overwhelmed with anger, you can find the strength to talk to your partner in the way I once did. It's very important to take your 50% of the responsibility and give 50% to your partner. After all, you were together with this person for many years for a reason, and I know that you might not really like my approach, because it's easier to blame the person, to say that they are a narcissist, that I am the innocent victim, or if it's a man, then I am the victim of my narcissistic wife. On the internet, narcissism is often demonized and very much, there's an induced perception of the victim as some kind of angel. But we often know how victims can take on a toxic position in relationships with narcissists. They can provoke and manipulate. We need to be aware of all this, what we do in relationships and what we are personally responsible for. So it's a very bold move, but if you are an adult, you will understand what I mean. If you are still on your path of development and do not yet feel your maturity, you will be outraged by my suggestion to talk about mutual responsibility. I'm not saying to go to the narcissist and tell him, oh, it's me, he's to blame for everything, you are so wonderful. No, I am talking about a specific and clear division of responsibility for what we have done with our marriage together. We both participated in it, but many of you might understand me in such a way that you should come and tell your partner that my only responsibility is that I allowed my boundaries to be broken, that I tolerated you. That's one way. And it's a bit tricky and manipulative. Here, in fact, you are not really taking responsibility for your participation. You could say, yes, I tolerated you, you were destructive, and I allowed and tolerated everything. Many victims are killed in this way and acknowledge their responsibility, but you can say it in a completely different way. Yes, I am a traumatized person. Yes, I have my childhood trauma. Yes, I saw a parental figure in you, and that's my problem. Yes, I was looking for a perfect mother who would satisfy all my childhood needs, and that's my problem. Yes, I am codependent, and that's my ultimate problem. But it doesn't end there. I have 50% of my responsibility. Your responsibility, for example, is in the fact that you did something, and even with a list, I can even give you an example. If in a couple, a person with abandonment trauma is in a relationship with a narcissist, then it can be said like this. You can conduct a dialogue in this way. But before I tell you how, for example, such a couple can conduct this dialogue, I remind you that your subscriptions and likes are very valuable to me. Don't forget about this. And write to me in the comments about how your breakup happened, whether you were able to remain friends with your ex-partner. So, how to conduct such a dialogue? For example, when in a couple there is a person with abandonment trauma, a codependent person, and the partner is, for example, a narcissist, you could say, I actually have poor boundaries. I am afraid of loneliness. It's my responsibility. That's why I clung to you. I am a codependent person. That's why I endured a lot. It's my problem that I am codependent. I take on a victim position. I am anxious. I am controlling. Maybe you didn't like that and you were angry with me. Then go on to say that the other person has their share of responsibility. Every person is responsible for their own traumas, childhood ones for their own words, actions, and reactions. So then you return to the narcissistic partner You lack empathy. You are devaluing, critical. It's very painful and it's unpleasant. It kills any kind of closeness. You are an emotionally cold person, and you showed a lot of superiority towards me, and it was painful for me. Moreover, it doesn't suit me. I decide to end the relationship. Actions. In this way, you can simply share the responsibility. Every adult knows how to share responsibility for what happened. Equally, you can't say that in a relationship where one is a narcissist and the other is a victim. One is more to blame and the other less. This is such an immature distribution of responsibility. Still, everything needs to be shared 50-50, especially when it comes to divorce. That's all. Subscribe to my channel, like and share my videos on social media. And also, please write how your divorce or breakup with your partner happened. Were you able to remain friends